All right, now we're going to talk to a candidate who is best known for being a stripper. We're going to have to talk about that. But in Washington, she's something that is considered far more outrageous, a progressive. Okay, Alexandra Hunt running for Congress in Pennsylvania's 3rd district. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I like that.
Okay, so Alexandra, look, a lot of people are talking about the stripper angle, right? At this point, you got to be super sick of it, is my guess. The election's in 11 days. At the same time, it brought you a ton of attention that most progressive candidates don't get, right? Most progressive candidates have their campaign die from complete inattention from the media. So it's a mixed blessing or a silver lining. So my question is, are you glad that you talked about it? Are you glad that it got covered? Or are you so sick of it that it overshadowed everything else and was counterproductive?
I don't think it was counterproductive at all. I think that it has been important that I talk about my experience as working as a stripper, and that I've led with all the pieces of my story that make me who I am today, so that people can understand where I come from and how I'm going to move in, if elected and when elected, to office. So I do not regret speaking on it at all. That doesn't mean that it's been easy. It's been hard. It's been tiring to go up against an incumbent and to go up against stigma as well. And that's made, I think, our campaign trail much more difficult to navigate, but I think it was an important thing to do. And so absolutely no regrets of doing that.
Yeah, so let me ask you one standard question, then we'll get back into politics. So I know the old school way of thinking. Like, my parents are from the old country, and they would say, "She is such a smart girl, why she do that?" Okay, so why did you do that back in the day? People want to know. But I'm dying to answer it for you, but I'm asking you a question, so I'm gonna let you answer.
Well, people have all different sorts of reasons for getting involved in the club or the sex work scene. And for me, it was I needed money. At the time, I was in college and I didn't have a ton of hours to work. I couldn't get a full-time job, but I had bills to pay. And I was working at the on-campus restaurant, and it just, getting tips from other college students was not paying my bills. And I had heard that you could make a lot of money at a strip club. So I went to one, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna jump into this world and see how it goes. And the rest is history.
Yep. So Alexandra, now let's talk politics, because in the Democratic circles, being a progressive is far more outrageous, right? And so just ask Nina Turner how the press treats you if you're a progressive, right? Or me, or Bernie, or anyone else. So, and you're running against an incumbent, which they despise. So how's the race going? How have you been received? By all quarters, the press, the Democratic Party, the voters will find out about, but press and the Democratic Party, man.
The press has been very fascinated with the former stripper aspect of my past, and has really honed in on that. The right-wing media has totally dragged my name through their discourse for having an abortion and speaking to that. And then as for the Democratic Party, they can't stand when I show up in a room. Today, I was at a PA Dems rally for pro-choice. And as I said, I've had an abortion. I've been on Fox News for talking about having an abortion. The Democratic Party does not embrace me or my lived experiences as a candidate and what I could offer that into the conversation that's happening at the table and in these rooms right now. And it's even worse with the Philadelphia Democrats. So people have asked, has the DCCC reached out to help at all? And absolutely not, have not heard from them.
No, you're running against an incumbent. If the DCCC reached out, it'd be with a 2x4. So no, you don't want them reaching out. And I'm not surprised that the Democratic Party is the most judgmental and the most negative about all of this. So that's why we're trying to change the Democratic Party. What's your main argument against the incumbent? Because the mainstream media will say, well, you're a progressive, but Jim Jablowski, I'm sure he takes tons of corporate cash, and probably, if push came to shove, would vote the wrong way. But we're going to call him progressive too. So why not him?
Dwight Evans.
Yeah.
Well, so I really think of Dwight Evans. He's an old school politician, and that he still tries to lead with that type of politics, and it's just not fitting to the urgency and the need of this current time, where there's a lot of crisis across the country and a lot of crisis here in Philadelphia. And so I really think of Representative Evans as representing the status quo and complacency, and that isn't what we need right now. And we are not in a position to be able to send back representatives who are just going to comfortably sit in a seat and not fight for everyday people.
So Alexandra, I've been calling you a progressive because you're for Medicare for all and $15 minimum wage and all those progressive positions, right? But what would be the difference if you went in? Because most incumbents, you're right, including Dwight Evans, who no one has ever heard of on the national scene, because he probably took the seat and then warmed that seat up for decades, right? I don't know anything about him because he never does anything. Never, ever, ever. Never heard of him. He's never fought on anything. Totally useless on the national scene, right? So what would you do differently?
Well, I mean, I would fight for things. I am not headed to Congress to make friends and to sit comfortably in a seat. I honor my words and my platform that I'm running on. So for example, my opponent does not support the Green New Deal because he's personally invested in the fossil fuel industry. He doesn't support universal health care because he takes money from private health insurance companies. I'm running on what we call a New Deal for education, which is calling for the federal funds to be invested into public education, as well as the cancellation of student debt and tuition-free public college. My opponent was in the State House first, and he defunded public education, founded his own charter school, and takes money from my personal student loan provider. He's tough on crime, takes money from private prisons, and believes in broken window policing, and also is personally invested in weapons manufacturers. Whereas I'm running on criminal justice reform and pushing for more rehabilitation through that system. So I believe I'm running on a compassionate platform that's fighting to put compassion into government, whereas, as I said, he's complacent with the status quo, which is really take money from corporations and sit comfortably in a seat.
Did you say taking money from private prison companies?
Yep.
And this district's in Philly, where criminal justice reform is desperately needed. And now with actually the prosecutor there, you're finally getting some criminal justice reform. But in Philly, in that district, he's taking money from private prisons to lock people up for profit.
Yep.
And Democrats in the media think that you have morality issues?
Exactly.
Okay. Do you take any corporate PAC money?
No.
Okay, by the way, the website is alexandramhunt.com, alexandramhunt.com. We'll put the link down below in the description box. Now, Alexandra, look, let's keep it real. You stripped your clothes for money, but he is stripping his principles for money.
Agreed.
What do you think is worse?
Well, I obviously think that being what I will change my language here, but one of our merchandise items says I may have danced for money, but I'm no corporate bleep. And So I obviously think that taking corporate money is far worse in morals, and selling out your constituents is far worse than taking your clothes off.
And guys, I'm just saying it that way to make a point. I don't think there's anything wrong with stripping. So what? So what? Who cares? Who cares? How does that bother anyone? Like the idea that that's immoral is like just so stupid and old school for no reason, okay? But Alexandra, if you did take corporate PAC money, do you think they'd be giving it to you just for their health, for the general welfare? Or do you think that if you took money from defense contractors and oil companies and drug companies like your opponent does, that they might ask for a favor in return?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what they got out of my opponent, but they won't get it from me.
Okay, so now since he is an incumbent, he's going to have a massive advantage, okay? So strategically, how do you overcome that advantage and win this election?
I think people underestimate how betrayed people feel by him in the district. And so it's really, we're being very well received. And it's a matter of reaching voters and reaching enough voters to win a very politically active district that turns out to vote time and time again with our message and our platform that we're running on. But the persuasion that people are probably anticipating is not as high because people are ready for change. And it's just a matter of getting in touch with them and saying, hey, there is a staunch progressive running, ready to fight, ready to go to work for you in Washington. This is the platform, and we're collecting the votes.
So I often ask these in red districts, but this is a deeply blue district. I'm still curious, especially about the juxtaposition. What are the issues that are resonating the most in the district?
Public safety is our number one issue, and our communities have been divested and defunded. And so we need things like housing for all, which is part of the Green New Deal. We need a living wage. We need jobs and job opportunity, but also schools and healthcare. We had a hospital close a couple of years ago, and that really, really hurt the district. And that was done on my opponent's watch. And then, as I said, when he was in the State House, he was in a very powerful position in the State House. He was chair of the Appropriations Committee, and he defunded public schools, and education is something that is really important to the district, and making sure that we get funding back into our public school system.
Okay, Alexandra, I'll leave you on this hope that if you win, please do not listen to Democratic leadership. They're the same people who tried to shame you and attack you now. Later, they will pretend to be your friends. They are not your friends, okay? That's all. You don't have to answer that one. That's just my word to the wise. AlexandraMHunt.com. Alexandra, thank you so much for joining us and for having the courage to put yourself out there and try to make a difference in the world.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.